day in Black baseball history. I was on earlier and had a few things to do. Actually, I'm a trustee at my church, so I had to take care of some trustee business. And so I am back to talk a little baseball. And how's everybody doing? And we're going with the part two of this broadcast. And so I don't want to labor this out too long tonight, but I do want to make sure some people get on and talk a little bit, just a little bit more. And I do want to thank everybody for getting me to or getting me past the 755 subscribers. That was my Hank Aaron number. So you know what that means. We're on to the Barry Bonds number. Now, Barry Bonds had a career total. Okay, somebody know? No, we don't have anybody in here yet, but well, okay, we'll have somebody in a minute. But Barry Bonds had a total of 762 home runs. So that's going to be my next number that I'm going for, 762. And that is the Barry Bonds career number of home runs. So I tell you what, like always, your help has been the thing that's gotten me there. And I just keep bringing this baseball information to you and just having a good time talking baseball. And so hopefully you are enjoying it as well. So we're talking about some historic things that happened on April the 7th, 19. Well, actually, I can go back through the ages, but of course, this is the 2026 edition. But I'm going to go to 1901. So let's go back, way back to 1901 and see what I can tell you. All right, so April 17, 1901, the men of Ocala, Florida have organized for the season, their baseball team, and are practicing every afternoon. And the team's club rooms are over the Bazaar store. That's where they're located, and their little office there. And the club will be uniformed and equipped in first class materials this year. Okay. And the following officers and players are listed along with their positions. So didn't get a lot of first names, but I did get initials for first names. A lot of people would do that, and so they wouldn't have to print out the whole name. It's always nice when they can print out the whole name, so at least you know who some of these people are if you want to do some research on them. Now, if they got a unique last name, that also helps too. But anyway, I see I. Porter is going to be the catcher. W. Richardson is going to be a pitcher. L. Lewis, the first baseman. S. Anderson, second base. L. Hempington is going to be shortstop. And then I'm not sure how you pronounce this name. S. Aytch. I'm not sure he pronounced that. Anyway, he's going to play third base. Then they got S. Parker is the left fielder, and A. LeBrew is a center fielder, and C. Brooks is the right fielder. They've got some substitutes. First of all, they got H. Yarby and W.E. Owens and a Saul, that same last name, so it must have been brothers, Aytch. He is the captain of the team. Actually, that's okay. I guess what he's the captain and the third baseman. And F.P. Gatson is the president, and Van Sims the manager, Lee Hampton the secretary, and that is the team. Ocala. How much do you know about Ocala? The first time I heard about Ocala was in conversations talking to people from Florida, like Buck O'Neill. Now, Buck O'Neill grew up, actually, he was born in Clarabelle, Florida, which was 200 miles from Ocala. And then he later on moved to Sarasota, Florida, which was 150 miles from Ocala. Now, Ocala is famous in history because they had a race riot in Ocala. Now, it really wasn't much of a race riot. Basically, it was a slaughter of African American people because a guy went down there and a black guy had the nerve to vote, to want to vote. And that angered all the surrounding population because they didn't want these black people voting. And so they came into Ocala, and a lot of people died. And I was looking this up. This was November the 2nd, 1920. Buck O'Neill would have been about 8 or 9 years old at that time. And so after he tried to vote, couldn't vote or whatever. But so anyway, they said estimates range from 30 to 60 people died, and some contemporary accounts and the NAACP reports at the same time the number was 30 to 35, while others estimate that the toll could be as high as 80 people that were killed simply because somebody wanted to vote. And when I think about some of the restraints that are going on in Florida right now, guys, I think about the struggle that my people had just wanting to vote, which is should be the right of every citizen in this country. So that was in Ocala. Now, feel free to go and look that up if you have never heard of that before. Ocala, Florida. And Buck O'Neill was from that area, and you know Buck O'Neill, he's the Kansas City Monarchs legendary first baseman, first black coach in the National League with the Chicago Cubs, and of course today he's a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I had the pleasure of being on the committee that year that put the ballot together so people could vote, and I was selected, and I got him on the ballot, along with Bud Fowler and a few other people I thought should have gotten in. John Donaldson, Vic Harris, George Scales, they were all on that ballot. None of those guys got in. So just know that Buck O'Neill did, and he was one of the people that could tell you a lot about Ocala, Florida. Yep. Okay. So now, if you're joining me, guys, I want to thank you for if you were one of the ones who pushed me over the 755 subscribers. Now I'm going for the 762 number, which is Barry Bonds' complete home run total. So that's where we're going next. So if you like this kind of content, guys, by all means, go ahead and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does let you know when I come back. And you never know what I'm going to come back with. I've got some exciting things planned. All right. So let's go to another one. Let's see. I talked about the Philadelphia Giants beating the Newark team earlier, so you can go back and listen to part one of today's This Day in Black Baseball History and hear that one. How about this one? Wednesday, April 7th, 1909, and this is my neck of the woods up in Carrollton, Missouri. Now, this is interesting because my family were slaves in Carrollton, right in there, Brunswick, Missouri, and that's where we were during the slavery period. The white family brought my ancestors from Virginia, and that's where we were in that area. So I know Carrollton area very well. So, but there were three players: C.E. Wiggins, Pye Brown, and Louis Menace. Louis Menace, and they were three of the crack outstanding African American baseball players from Carrollton, and they went to St. Joseph and joined up with the South Park team. Now, the South Park team was a very famous team. I happen to know a little bit about that team. And so they went there, and they were considered, the South Park was considered one of the fastest, you might say, colored teams in that part of the state, right? And they played at South Park. How about that? South Park, the team South Park playing in South Park. St. Joseph is a very interesting town. And so, yep, so that's where they went. And whenever I see somebody from Carrollton or Brunswick, I always look a little closer because I often wonder who these people were. And 1909, they would have known my ancestors because my ancestors were big uh, with the what you call them uh, like the Masons. For they were big with the Masons. I'm trying to think what kind of club you call those. They were big in that. So the whole Freemasonry movement. So they probably knew some of my relatives. And even when I think about Ocala, I wonder if any of those men were among those people who died or when because somebody tried to vote. I wonder about that because you see deaths but you don't see any names. So I'm always digging because I'm always curious, and I always try to make sure that I turn over every stone when I'm researching something. And so if I think of it, I'm going to try to look it up. All right. So anyway, that is Carrollton, Missouri. And Carrollton is actually not that far in the whole Brunswick area from where John Donaldson was born in Glasgow, Missouri. And that's right down on the river. And of course, a lot of those places were on the river because, believe it or not, the river was our first superhighway. So most of our great American cities are on the river. A lot of people don't know that. So there we go. So let's go. How about this one? This one's kind of interesting. April 7th, 1913. And the Chicago American Giants lost a 2-1 game to the Portland Beavers at Athletic Park in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So they're up in Canada playing, and yeah, it was a close game. Matter of fact, the Providence newspaper said the game was just as pretty a contest as one could ever wish for, and ended up the American Giants lost 2-1. But there were some outstanding performances. For instance, Jess Barber, somebody who we need to talk about more. Uh, Jess Barber homered for the Giants' one run, and Jim Candy Taylor went 2 for 4, and Bruce Petway went 2 for 2 with a triple and stole 2 bases. Man, I'm telling you, we had some catchers that could flat out run, and Bruce Petway was one of those guys. You know, he wasn't like those catchers you had in the major leagues who were slow, right? Bruce Petway had speed, and he used it. Was a great bunter as well. So that is it. Now I'm going to give you one more, and then I'm going to jump off of here for tonight. And don't forget, check out Larry Brown. Larry Brown, the famous Memphis catcher. I mentioned this in the first part one of this day in Black baseball history. He died on this day in Memphis, Tennessee. I gave a whole rundown about Larry Brown and how I think that if Raymond Shark, is in the Hall of Fame, then Larry Brown should be there too. And I'm going to continue to push for that. And my first step though is to get him in the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, and then move on to Cooperstown to make a good argument for guys like Larry Brown, Frank Duncan, Bruce Petway, um, T.J. Young would be another one. I can think of a few more guys, but I want to make a good argument for those guys because they're just not getting their due. All right, so let me go here. Okay, this one you will find interesting. Every once in a while, you get a chance to hear a ball player's actual voice, something they said, right? Hey, and I see Bob's in here from Lake Tahoe. Is anybody else from anywhere else? Bob, okay. I think you caught the first Bob broadcast as well. So you're doing double duty tonight, right? Reminds me of double duty Ratcliffe. So it's Bob, double duty poet tonight. All right, doing double duty. So anyway, let me go through this one because I always like to hear voices of players, and sometimes they're talking about things that have nothing to do with baseball. So this is one from April the 7th, 1915, and he was talking about the fight that occurred on April the 5th, 1915, between Jack Johnson, the heavyweight champion, and Jess Willard. Jess Willard was called a Potawatomi Giant because he was from Potawatomi, Kansas. This guy might have been 6'6" or something like that. He wasn't that great a boxer, and so he did fight Jack Johnson. I think they went 26 rounds, and so Jack Johnson ended up losing the fight. But here's something interesting because there was always a split between certain kinds of black people and other kinds of black people, right? So they're all black, but even in the black community, you have levels of let's see. I'm trying to think. You have a certain level of elitism, even in the black community. And of course, you have to be in the black community to be able to identify some of these people because I grew up with many of them, so I can tell you I've seen them both ways. But anyway, Joe Green, he used to play for the Chicago Leland Giants, played for the Chicago Giants. He went on record as saying, Willard's victory is the greatest thing for the colored race that has happened since Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. And that's a pretty strong statement. And so he didn't have a problem getting in the newspaper. And that's what Joe Green said. And he said, I am speaking for the better class of my race when I say that we all sincerely believe that we would have been better off if Jim Jeffries had landed the haymaker on Johnson at Reno 5 years ago. Now, that's a really interesting comment coming from Joe Green. And so basically, something happened that he just felt that Jack Johnson, had he lost that fight, something would have been different. I don't know what he was thinking, but I'm looking at that. And he said, and then he went on to say, and he said, there's a feeling that Johnson was paid to lay down to Willard and that ran through Chicago's black belt last night. And that he mentioned about that, and then he went on to say, um, but that was only the opinion of colored folks who were trying to crack wise. Now, I don't know what that statement means, trying to crack wise. Not sure what that means. And so I think that he said those were not his kind of people, evidently. So he said, and I suppose that feeling started when somebody nosed around that John talking about Jack Johnson's mother, got a couple of letters from the South that she refused to show to a single soul. He said, personally, I believe that Jack thought more of the championship title than he did anything else in the world. And it must have broken his heart when he realized that he had met a superior foe. Man, it's highly debatable if Jess Willer was a superior foe. And then, of course, Jess Willer instantly got beat by Jack Dempsey. I'm almost sure. I haven't looked that up lately, but it seems like I recall that he lost to Jack Dempsey because he wasn't that great a boxer. And he is in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. And I was just talking to them last week, and I was telling them that there's a guy by the name of Tommy Campbell who who he grew up. He was actually born across the street from where I lived in an area called Rattlebone Hollow, and he is the winningest boxer in Kansas history, not Jess Willard. Jess Willard was a heavyweight champion, but Tommy Campbell was the greatest fighter. They said that Tommy's had the quickest left hand since Joe Gans, and you know Joe Gans was quite the fighter. Of course, he passed away from tuberculosis in 1910. Joe Gans did. Tommy Campbell lived until 1969. Fought a lot in Los Angeles, and so I've written some interesting things. If you go and look in Facebook, you can find the Tommy Campbell memorial page, and I operate that as well. So I have my hands in different things. So Dempsey and Willard fought July 4th, 1919, I think, and that's when he lost his title. I'm almost sure. So yeah, thanks for looking that up. He's quick, man. I'm telling you, Bob is always working to find something, right? So anyway, guys. That kind of does it for me. Since I'm done a two-parter, so I guess I put in over 30 minutes today, and I'm just so happy that we got past the 755 number. Now it's on the 762. And once we hit that number, which we can get to that number really quickly, then it's going to be going for the Sahara O number. And today I was talking to a guy, he's really into baseball. And I told him about the Barry Bonds. He didn't know how many home runs Barry Bonds hit. I said, you need to come and listen to my broadcast because you if